Hello. My name is Emmanuel Forsans, and I'm the managing director of the French video game agency, AFJV. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this invitation and for the honor of being able to discover Kenya. I'm particularly happy to be here today, as this is my first trip to sub-Saharan Africa. So, I'd like to thank you once again. Thank you. As I was saying, I'm the director of the French video game agency. AFJV is an independent organization which manages, among other things, the distribution of all job offers in the video game industry in France. AFJV also manages the directory of the French video game companies. On our website, you will find a list of all the French video game companies. You'll also find industry, legal, and economic intelligence. All this information is freely accessible to all. I'm here to share with you some figures on the video game and esports market worldwide, in France, and in Africa. Let's take a look at the points we are going to cover. So, on. Faut lancer la presse. Yes, thank you very much. So I think, okay, that works. First, I'd like to take a look at the global figures for video game and esports. We'll then focus on the video game market in France. We'll then take a look at the profile of French gamers and some figures on esports in France. Then we'll talk about video game market in Africa, the profile of gamers in Africa, and finally the challenges that Africa will have to overcome to win the game. Great. The video game market worldwide. If we consider the cultural and creative industry of music, film, and TV platforms, such as Netflix, we come up with global sales of $150 billion. Music represents 25 billion, cinema $45 billion, and TV platforms 80 billion. So that's a total of 150 billion. By 2023, video games alone will be worth 187 billion. That means more than music's, cinema, and TV platforms combined. It's a huge, huge market. Smartphone games, or mobile game, account for almost half of this sales figure. That's to say $92 billion. Mobile games alone are bigger than all the Netflix, Disney, and other broadcasting platforms combined. Console game alone, Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch, are valued at $51 billion. That is to weigh more than the worldwide cinema market. PC games, meanwhile, account for sales of 37 billion, bigger than the music market, just with PC games. I should point out that this figure only includes software sales and absolutely do not include hardware or accessories. Yes. Ok. J'ai passé une... Ah, ok. Because it's the same picture. Okay, let's take a look on how video game sales are distributed around the world. Asia Pacifics account for almost half, 46% of, or $86 billion. In second place is North America, which accounts for 27 with $52 billion, followed by Europe, 18 with 34 billion. Finally, Latin America, 9 billion, and last but not least, the Middle East and Africa, which account for 4% of global video game sales with $7 billion. Once again, I'd like to point out that these figures only take into account software and game sales, and do not include hardware and accessories. Yes. Thank you, Desiree. We close our global review with few figures on esports around the world. Let me remind you that the video game market is worth $187 billion. It is estimated that esports represents around 10% of this market, or around $2 billion. Today, esports in Africa represents only a few $100 million of this $2 billion. There is enormous scope for growth, and this market can only grow strongly in Africa. Let's take a look at the video game market in France, which is currently worth 5.5 billion euros. The French video game market can be divided in three distinct ecosystems: the console ecosystems, the PC ecosystems, computers, and the mobile ecosystem, smartphones. The largest ecosystem in France is consoles. It represents sales of 2.57 billion, broken down roughly as follows: 1.6 billion for video games, of which 38% are sold as physical version, and 62 as dematerialized, versions. Today, dematerialized versions have far overtaken physical sales in France and more generally worldwide. Console sales, in other words, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch, account for 646 million euros in France. Accessories for console, controllers, backup discs, cables, etc. account for sales of 289 million euros. In the PC ecosystem, hardware sales account for the vast majority of sales. Out of 1.55 billion euros, 59% are hardware sales, with computer sales accounting for 909 million euros. Game sales accounting for just 31%, or 473 million euros. On the other hand, what's interesting to note here is that today sales of video games on physical media represent just 1%, while sales of dematerialized products have risen to 99%, mainly on Steam, of course. Finally, sales of accessories, mice, keyboard, joystick, etc., represent 165 million euros, or around 11%. And the mobile ecosystem, about the mobile ecosystem, it's interesting to note that the sales figure is made up exclusively of video games sold on mobile, or for that matter, not even sold, since 97% of sales are generated by free-to-play applications. So the 1.42 billion sales figure is made up exclusively of software and microtransactions sales. Phone sales are not included in this feature at all. Excluding console and accessory sales, mobile games are virtually the same as console game. 1.42 billion for mobile games and 1.6 billion for console games. Let's move on to the video game industry in France. There are some 1,000 companies specialized in video game in France, including 600 video games design studios. Most of these companies are based around Paris. As I said in my introduction, AFJV is responsible for listing all video game companies and compiling directories. We also publish all job offers for the video game industry in France, from Ubisoft to the smallest studio. All ads are published on AFJV job board. In 2022, we posted around 3,000 job offers, broken down as follows: around 30% for computer graphics designers, 26% for programmers, 14% for concept and game design, 7% for project manager, and so on. So, you'll notice that jobs for designers, programmers, and computer graphics specialists are far more numerous than those for sales or communication. This is normal, since it takes many more people to design a video game than it does to sell it. In France, the video game industry is largely supported by the government through various programs. The CNC, Centre National du Cinéma et de l'Image Animée, the French National Center for Cinema and Moving Images, is responsible for managing and distributing French government aid to video game companies. There are two main programs, the first of which is the Fonds d'aide aux jeux vidéo, fund to support video games. This program helps finance production by providing a number of grants and subsidies, such as writing assistance, pre-production assistance, and production assistance. This system is completed by a second one, a tax credit, the video game tax credit. This program allows all companies in the industry to deduct from their taxes 30% of their expenses directly linked to the production. An interesting feature of that tax credit is that even if the company pays no tax, it can claim the balance from the government. Last but not least, and this is a typical as it has just been voted by the French government, from 2024, esports will benefit from a reduction in VAT, as esports events will no longer be taxed with 20% VAT rate. You can applaud Desiree for that. He did the job. It's a very recent move. It's like 2 weeks. Yeah. Perhaps. Yes. No. Don't look. Let's move on the profile of French gamers. There are an estimated 37 million gamers in France. Nice, yes. Which means that 7 out of 10 French people play video games, either regularly or occasionally. Contrary to popular belief, the majority of gamers are not children, but adults, since 88% of gamers are adults. That is to say, people aged 18 and over, while only 12% are children aged 10 to 17. We have no information on children under 10. It is also interesting to note that the male-female parity is almost perfect, with 51% of players being male and 49% female. Yes, you can applaud also. Last but not least, the average age of players in France is 39, which again comes as something of a surprise. We imagine the average age of gamers to be a little younger, but in fact today, all segments of the population play video games, including young people, adults, and even senior citizens. And Desiree has worked also for that. With, what's the name of the association? For the senior. Silver Geek. Thank you for that. Esports in France. A few figures about esports in France. There are currently 7.8 million mainstream gamers. Mainstream gamers are those, I hope this is a correct traduction. Mainstream gamers. Casual gamers. Okay, we can say casual gamers. Casual gamers are those who say they play video games that allow them to play against other players at the same time, but without ranking or registering for organized competition. And the favorite game for casual gamers, not mainstream, casual gamers, is Mario Kart, accounting for 31%. Leisure esports enthusiasts, are you okay with that? Difficult to find the correct translation. Leisure esports enthusiast number 3.7 million. This is the biggest increase this year in France esports barometer. Again, thank you Desiree for France esports barometer. Leisure esports players are those who declare that they play video games that allow them to compete against other players at the same time, and who play ranked game and ladders but do not enter organized competition. Laser esports enthusiasts play FIFA and Fortnite in roughly the same proportion, 22%. Finally, there are 2.3 million amateur esports enthusiasts. They are people who declare that they play video games that allow them to compete against other players at the same time, take part in a ranked game, and have registered for at least one organized online or LAN game competition in the last 12 months. League of Legends is really the favorite game of esports player amateur, since LoL represents more than half of all games played by this category of esports players. Let's talk about video game market in Africa. Africa generated total video game sales of around $3.3 billion in 2020. These sales include Africa and the Middle East. The market in sub-Saharan Africa is expected to generate over $1 billion for the next time in 2024. In 2022, the sub-Saharan Africa video game market was worth around $862 million again. According to Newzoo, a specialist video game research firm covering all territories, mobile game generated 778, too much figures, too much numbers, 778 million in revenue in 2022, representing around 90% of the video game sales. The video game market in Africa is therefore very, very largely dominated by mobile video games. In sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria leads the way in annual video games revenue with $249 billion. $249 million. Next in line is South Africa, which generated $236 million in revenue from video games alone. Next comes Kenya, third position, with $46 million. Ethiopia with $42 million, and finally Ghana with 34 million. These figures also come from the News today. You've got all the numbers. Hello? For there to be a video game market, they have to be gamers. So let's see who the gamers are in Africa and what are their profile. What's certain is that Africa has enormous potential with its younger generations. Africa will be the continent with the larger number of young people over the next decade. Consequently, Africa's youth is crucial to the continent's future in video game. In 2019, around 272 million sub-Saharan Africans started using mobile. This number is expected to rise to 475 million by 2025. The COVID-19 pandemic has stimulated the video game market worldwide, and Africa has also benefited, as online gaming has seen very strong growth across all gamer age groups. Between 2015 and 2021, the number of mobile gamers in sub-Saharan Africa more than doubled, from 77 million to 186 million, according to the study by Newzoo. By 2022, around 13% of the world's internet users will come from Africa, compared with just 9% in 2010. Furthermore, the internet penetration rate in Africa is around 40%, and the vast majority of these connections are via mobile GSM. By way of comparison, the highest penetration rate in any country in the world is Saudi Arabia's 99%. France has a penetration rate of 92%. South Africa has a penetration rate of 72%. The potential for internet development in Africa is therefore enormous, and this development potential is directly linked to the development potential of video games, since almost all video games today require internet access. In addition to internet access issues, the video game industry in Africa faces other challenges, notably the fact that most African countries lack sufficient legal and regulatory thank you. I make it again. Notably, the fact that most African countries lack sufficient legal and regulatory frameworks to protect game developers and publishers against piracy and other forms of unauthorized distribution. This is important. Despite all these challenges, the game industry in Africa is experiencing extremely rapid growth and should continue to do so in the years to come. Thank you.